Hello everyone, I'm Agustin Almansi from VNC Automotive, Sales Engineering Director, and today we'll be talking about how to control critical equipment from the vehicle screen. So let's dig in. This is about professions that require you to do some tasks while you're in the vehicle, driving to a destination, and once you get on site. And that requires you to use important equipment to perform your duties. So things like public safety, first responders from emergency, health and fire services, law enforcement, so police officers, or more generally, technicians from utility companies or transportation services. So for simplicity, I will call all of these professions, let's say, roles, first responder for the rest of the presentation, and we'll see how using the vehicle screen can really benefit their job. So in terms of the agenda for the presentation, we're going to have a review of the most important equipment that first responders and the like use in the vehicle as part of their role. We'll see how that then leads to the way that it's integrated and actually accessed from within the vehicle in today's police, fire and ambulance vehicles. We'll see what some challenges are with that integration, some obvious ones that affect the responders today, but also some ones which some other challenges coming down the pipeline that the force in charge of these vehicles needs to also take into account. So taking all that, we'll see how using the vehicle screen can really improve and remove a lot of these issues to make it safer, more convenient and cheaper to maintain and to use. We'll then finally, after we review the various approaches for doing this, we'll present our recommendations for the best overall way of achieving this kind of car integration. And we'll finish with some real-life examples from European and North American markets of fire, police and ambulance services using this technology to enhance their jobs. So just first of all, just a quick overview of VNC Automotive and who we are. We've been around since 2009 now. Used to be part of a company called Real VNC until we had a management buyout about 6 years ago now, and we became independent. We've, in all this time, been focusing on the software industry. So typically connected car software, connecting your phone to the vehicle screen for things like entertainment and productivity use cases. So we've been working closely with car makers and also all the tier 1 suppliers that make those infotainment systems. And about 3-4 years ago, we saw a real need to adapt this kind of technology that has been very popular in passenger cars, or so for some 35 million cars today, adapting this same technology to the emergency services sector and really improving the life and the maintenance of this kind of services with the same integration into the vehicle screen. So let's have a review of the critical equipment that's being used by this kind of services. The main one, let's say that the main role for this equipment is typically to stay connected to the central dispatch, stay connected to their colleagues as they're driving to a particular incident or a particular job site. And then once they get there, they will need to do some tasks. And this equipment is key to that. So one of the main ones is the vehicle control systems. So lights, sirens, speakers for public announcements, maybe matrix message boards if you're like a traffic enforcement officer. These are typically equipment that's kind of fitted around and inside the vehicle, that's controlled through some kind of keypad, physical keypad that the first responder presses the necessary buttons to turn these features on or off. Another very common one to a lot of these professions is the mobile data terminal. which is typically a rugged, usually Windows PC, where they can get things like navigation, job information, but they can also write reports in the case of a police officer. So this can either be in a tablet, on handheld format, if they need to take it off the vehicle once they get to the job site, or more in the case of a police vehicle in particular, the officer a lot of times has to write reports directly on these computers. So they will also have a keyboard or a mouse that they need to access. So these are all extra kit that needs to be fitted into the vehicle. Radio systems, another very common one across all these professions. So typically handheld system that they can receive messages and send communications to their colleagues and the dispatch, that they can then can be maybe like a body worn unit that they can take off the vehicle, or in some cases it could be an actual unit fitted into the dashboard with some more functionality. Mobile devices, another one that's really been growing a lot. A lot of forces we've been hearing are moving a lot of the equipment, a lot of the functionality that they need to do their job into apps that run on iPhones or tablets. So again, these are devices they need to interact usually using the touchscreen while they're in the vehicle. Sometimes even while they're driving if it's a device that does navigation. So we need to kind of take into account of how these devices are used in a safe way while they're driving. Camera systems, another thing that's really growing a lot. This has various uses, so it could be, if you're a police or traffic officer, it could be automatic license plate recognition camera systems. It could be CCTV footage if you have some prisoners in the back of the vehicle. Or something that's being picked up a lot, especially in North American market, is using drone footage. Once you get to an incident, having the chief on site be able to aggregate all of these different video feeds to thermal imaging and things like that to see where to deploy their the first responders. So a lot of these systems typically have some dedicated screen where you can access this footage. So it's yet another device that needs to be integrated safely. So where does that leave the current vehicle cabin integration? So the kind of the front of the vehicle. Well, you end up with this various devices that need to be accessed by the first responder. A lot of cases, these devices need to also talk to each other for extra functionality. So you have all these wires in between them. So the more kind of common way of making this work is using cradles. So either mounting things on the dashboard or on the central cabin, central console, and then using cradles so this kit can be swung out of the way while the officer is in a kind of driving or pursuit mode, and then they can kind of bring in closer to their body to actually interact with it once they get to the incident. But as you can see, this has a lot of issues, and we'll go into the detail of some of those. In some cases, depending how much money the force has to kit out these vehicles, they could start integrating some of this wiring into the actual center console. So being able to actually rip that out and put a dedicated center console that hides some of that equipment. Or as in the third photo on the right, it can be something that goes on top of the vehicle screen, some cradle that goes on top of the vehicle screen for the MDT. So then it's a bit more easily accessible for the officer, and then they can just detach it when they go off the vehicle. So what are some of the issues, obvious and non-obvious issues with today's approach for vehicle cabin integration for all this critical equipment? So the very obvious one that you can see from the previous photos is the ergonomics, right? So very uncomfortable for the officer. They have to keep twisting their body to access some of this equipment on the far right or far left of the cabin. If they're not comfortable, their productivity is not going to be maximized either. We're hearing issues as well with staff retention because if you as a first responder, you're in this very uncomfortable cluttered workspace. then you're probably gonna want to work for a force that has a better, cleaner kind of cabin experience where you can do your job more comfortably. So that can actually be an issue with staff retention. But also safety, right? Because if you're getting into an accident, let's say a car crash or something like this, you don't want all this equipment flying out and hitting the first responder. So this really is a lot of issues there. But also from moving away from the officer's perspective and more into the kind of the force that kind of gets out and maintains these vehicles. A big issue there is the cost, because you're having to buy all of these special cradles and kind of mounting equipment. You're having to then put a lot of time into converting the vehicles once you get them from the car manufacturer. You need to rip out bits of the dashboard and do all this rewiring, screw things on. And then that's difficult and expensive to maintain. Let's say you get into an officer gets into some car crash or something like that. One of the cradles gets damaged. Replacing this equipment is actually quite expensive. And then the final element of that is the decommissioning cost. If you then want to repurpose the vehicle for a different use, or you want to sell it back into the market because you want to upgrade your fleet, you now ended up with this very damaged cabin and dashboard, which will really affect the resale price of that. So it's a lot of things from a cost perspective that really aren't ideal. And maybe another one that's perhaps a little bit less obvious is the kind of the lack of flexibility that this approach gives you, right? So first of all, you are dependent on particular equipment, because you bought all the special cradles for this right size of computer or the right size of monitors. And then you want to change that equipment. Well, now you realize that the cradle no longer fits, or so you need to go and buy new expensive cradles. It also ties you into the vehicle that you're using. Let's say you want to upgrade your fleet. You bought all these special cradles that fit this vehicle perfectly, depending on where the vehicle screen and all the steering wheel and other controls are. You want to change the vehicle. Now the new vehicle has things in a different position, different angles. You need to buy new cradles again. So this kind of switching costs are really quite high, especially in today's world where a lot of forces are moving to electric vehicles. There's a lot of churn now to move to new models, and this is a key consideration as well. So what are some other just as important challenges that maybe aren't so obvious? So one is this trend with modern vehicles. This is an example of a Ford Mach-E, for example, which came out only a few years ago, fully electric. The screens are getting bigger in the car, and there's also more screens being added. So the screens now, where the digital cluster used to be, in some high-end cars, you start seeing screens on the passenger kind of airbag side as well. So you're now running out of space to actually put your cradles and fit your extra equipment. But also, specifically on the Mach-E, for example, we've been told from customers that because the position of the airbags has changed, because of course the screen is now taking such a big center space, the airbags are being pushed more towards to the other side of the dashboard. You now can't fit your cradle or your MDT device on that dashboard side, because you'll be blocking the airbag, and hence you wouldn't be able to have a second passenger next to the driver. Another thing, because a lot of it is moving to this big screen in the center of the vehicle, a lot of car makers are now even removing the physical knobs and physical ways of doing things like climate control, for example. And it's now in the touchscreen. So if you're now putting your cradle or your MDT device to block the existing vehicle screen, then the driver doesn't have access to those features anymore. Another important one is the reversing camera. You won't be able to see the reversing camera if you're blocking the vehicle screen. Another one, which is very important, related to my previous slide, is the transition to EV vehicles. So if you're adding this really expensive and very heavy new center consoles or cradles, you're adding a lot of weight to the vehicle, and obviously weight affects the range and how much you can get, how many miles or kilometers you can get out of the battery. So that's another big implication, and that has obviously strong cost implications. And another one I wanted to highlight is new regulations coming into the world. So particularly in the European market, we're seeing a lot of new guidance and let's say mandates, not just guidance, on what can be distracting the driver, typically the first responder, while they're driving to the destination. How long they can glance away from the windshield to use and check some of this equipment, how far they can reach to press some of the buttons and things. So if you're putting all of this equipment today, on the far kind of far side of where they're driving, then that's going to be unsuitable really to meet some of these regulations. So you'll be forced as a force to change your layouts. So that's something that we'll probably see growing more into other international areas as well. So these are all very important considerations, a lot of important limitations with today's approach. So how can this be done better? Well, we think integrating to the vehicle screen is the way to go. The vehicle screen is always positioned already in the most ergonomic location for the driver. The car maker has taken on that decision already as part of all the research, all of their safety testing when they design that vehicle. So you really want to have the officer interact with that screen as much as possible. Also, the screens, as we saw, are getting bigger in the car with high resolution. That means that moving some of the dedicated screens that you have today for things like MDT or kind of camera footage are now kind of feasible to do inside the vehicle screen, which traditionally was very small, very low resolution, and that's kind of rapidly changing. Another advantage of using the vehicle screen is not just that you can replace some of your existing screens and devices, ways of interacting with your current devices. You can even use the screen as a secondary screen. So you can still have your MDT device in maybe some bigger vehicles, and use the vehicle screen as a secondary display. So you can actually multitask and have multiple applications available to the driver and to the first responder at the same time. So really, integration into the vehicle screen makes a lot of sense. So how can this be achieved? Well, luckily, a lot of people have seen the value in this, and there's quite a few approaches for achieving it. So one is working directly with what the car OEM offers. So there are a very few select car OEMs who have developed, let's say, a kind of bespoke solution for their vehicles that allows you to connect your devices into that vehicle screen. So this is an example from Ford. Unfortunately, they only have this available in one or two models, and this is one of the big limitations with this approach, which I'll cover in a second. But the idea is that you get a bigger monitor on the front screen, where you can connect your MDT, for example, or your camera footage, and then that means that you can stow those devices safely in the back or in the glove compartment, for example, out of the way of the cabin, and then instead access their video feeds through the vehicle screen. There's been some, they offer some integration with the vehicle control systems like the lights and the sirens. Because the OEM, the car maker, has created this custom solution, they have been able to kind of hook it into some of those light controls. So you can even do things like turning on the lights and the sirens directly from the screen. But a big let's say limitation with this approach is the cost. This is usually a very high premium to add this to a vehicle from Ford. But also the availability, right? It really limits, how what kind of type of vehicles and models you can add to your fleet if you want to take advantage of this. But it certainly is a good option. Another way is with this kind of aftermarket approach. So there's a few solutions that what they do is they bring in their own box in between the car screen and the vehicle computer. So by ripping off the dashboard, they can hook in this box into the video feed that goes to the vehicle screen. So then that means they can take over, their box can take over what is shown by the vehicle screen. And that means that they can connect their box to the lights and sirens or to the MDT devices, Windows PCs, things like that. So then you can access everything from that central vehicle screen. This is great because in theory it should work with quite a few car models. But in reality, it really is a very expensive and kind of still very destructive installation. You need to rip out all the wiring looms behind the dashboard to connect this box into the vehicle screen. It's very fragile in terms of updates to the car or to new models. You can't just use the same wiring looms to connect to any vehicle. And we've heard from customers using this approach that sometimes you'll get a software update for the car that changes the way the video signals are sent, and all of a sudden the box can no longer send the video feed to the vehicle screen. So it's a good approach. It's definitely allowing good integration with the vehicle screen, but it still has a lot of this kind of high costs, high installation kind of time constraints and issues that we saw in the past. So what we think is a really good approach is using plug-and-play solutions. So leveraging whatever connectivity standards are already available in the car by the car maker. So things like Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and being able to connect your devices using that. So that means it's a very plug-and-play solution. It means that it's using official standards that the car makers have approved and tested. That makes it future-proof, and it makes it very flexible. It's also a very simple connection. You're just connecting your box that then talks to your critical devices, which is a simple plug-and-play cable. And you can take full advantage of the vehicle screen and also take full advantage of the audio system in the vehicle. But because it's already integrated into the vehicle experience by the car makers, it coexists very nicely with the standard interface that you use for climate controls or reversing cameras. So whereas the previous approach, the kind of aftermarket approach, because that box is taking over the full screen, you still lose access to those native functionality, but not so much with this approach. It's much easier to kind of switch between the two. And also with this approach, the driver, the first responders, they're already used to connecting their phones today for navigation and music streaming, so they don't have to learn a new system, a new kind of user experience. With the aftermarket solution, because it's usually very bespoke, kind of wired solution that has to kind of intercept some of the CAN messages to actually enable the kind of the switching between the two modes. They usually have some kind of gesture or some kind of special button combination you have to press to switch in and out. That's very difficult to learn for someone that's not technical. Whereas this plug-and-play solution, like I say, they're just using it the same way that they use their phone today in their normal car. So it really seems like a good approach. So yeah, I think in summary, we would recommend this type of plug-and-play approach. We have actually developed a product called the Cobalt Cube, which does exactly this, and it allows you to safely stow a lot of this critical equipment that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. You can put it in the back of the vehicle, and then our Cobalt Cube box will get that content into the vehicle screen. So you can access all of these various devices like lights and sirens, MDT applications, mobile applications running on phones, tablets, radio systems, camera footage, all can be accessed from that same interface in the vehicle screen. So very easy to install, very easy to decommission, and keeps the cabin very clutter-free and safe and ergonomic for the officer. So we have actually been working closely with fire, ambulance, and police forces around the world for a few years to integrate this approach, and the feedback has been really positive. And I wanted to show you some examples of that from the North American and European markets. So these are some examples from police departments. So you can see on the left how the MDT, the Windows MDT rugged device, has been integrated into the vehicle screen for the Ford Mach-E. In the center, we have a Peugeot with the LED matrix message board, so they can select which message to show on the message board directly from the vehicle screen. And on the right, we see a Volvo car that's integrating camera footage directly into the vehicle screen. So this is all possible with this kind of plug-and-play approach provided by the Cobalt Cube. Fire services are also using this very successfully. You can see some examples here using the Ford 150 Lightning. They have integrated, this is a thing in Canada, they have integrated the lights and sirens controller directly into the vehicle screen, so they can turn on the lights, they can turn on the siren directly from there. And then on the photo on the right, you can see they've also integrated their MDT device as well. And as you can see from the vehicle screen, you can see the full screen of the device and you have full control. So then they can stow that safely in the back. And a final example from health services. So these are some in North America and some in Germany in these photos, where they've integrated, again on the left, you can see the MDT has been integrated into the vehicle screen. And they still keep, as you can see on the top, the kind of the key functionality for the lights and sirens. So then, as soon as they get into the vehicle, they can quickly enable that and then get more of the functionality through the vehicle screen once that's ready to go. And then the one on the right is showing the integration with a radio system. So again, you can see they kept the physical handset for some of the kind of quick calling functionality that they need. But then they can use the vehicle screen for viewing messages or selecting talk groups. Some of the more complex features are much easier to do with a bigger screen in the front of the car. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to cover today. Hopefully you can see the benefits of vehicle screen integration. You can see how it addresses a lot of the issues that you have today when you're integrating this critical equipment in the cabin for fire, police, emergency services, and other things like utilities. And the various approaches that can do that in the market today, and why we think this kind of plug-and-play approach provided by the Cobalt Cube is the way forward. So thank you for your time.